Stop with the questions. Celebrate.
And then they say, is Donald Trump an intellectual? Trust me, I'm like a smart person. Yosemite's one of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water.
Mike Lindell's a conspiracy.
Well, you haven't. Person, woman, man, camera, TV. They said nobody gets it in order. It's actually not that easy, but for me it was easy.
Amazing.
He can't sit down. He's got a burning in his butthole. He's got a fire. He's got a flame coming out of his butthole.
Big, massive dumps.
Oh, I have a term for that. I call it corporate communism.
Somebody sent me a thing this morning where they're talking about putting the vaccine into salad dressing.
You see, this is a simple meme that you would find on the internet, but this meme is very real.
You ain't seen nothing yet until you see the flaming butthole.
Putting us on our knees to China.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
They want to make you drink Starbucks every day from now until forever.
On the nation, Waldorf Nation. What's up, everybody? What's up, everybody? Ah, my God, I can't talk today. Which is a really big problem if you have a talk show. What's up, everybody? I don't know what's going on with me today. All right, so we got a fun show today. Oh, great start. Great, nailed it. Nailed it. I might as well just shut the whole thing down right now. If that's the way it's going to be. All right. Anyway, fun. We already have fun. Very smooth opening. Thank you. Thank you. Fun. Lots of fun. Okay, so now we have some not fun stuff today. And some fun and some good stuff as usual. We are going to talk about rich oligarchs crying. That's fun. I enjoyed that story. We have cancel culture, couple of stories. Cancel culture and the woke military. The woke they, them army. That's fun. Lots of fun stuff. We also have, some updates in January 6th committee. I'm just going to go through that. I don't know what's going on too much with that, so we're going to go through it together, of course. And then we have a disparity in voter fraud. So voter fraud cases and how they are punished through the justice system. So lots of stuff here. Obviously, I get way ahead of myself, which is why I couldn't get words out correctly. So anyway, let's do it. Let's jump into the stories. We have, of course, billionaires crying. Fun. Okay. All right. Following the Russian invasion of Ukraine, European countries, along with the United States, have decided to put crippling sanctions on some of the billionaire oligarchs. These Russian oligarchs have been sanctioned, and also their assets have been targeted for seizure. In fact, you have apartments, private jets, and super yachts that have been targeted, and some that have been seized. And of course, you have the rest that are basically running for the hills. They're trying to find anywhere that they can go to where the United States and the European Union and their allies would not be able to reach and seize said assets. Which leads me, of course, to when rich men cry.
I care. That's it.
You know you love it. So now this, of course, during President Biden's State of the Union, the president warned Russia that we are coming for your ill-begotten gains, and of course that's what's happening. According to Bloomberg, a growing number of super yachts belonging to Russian tycoons have decided to flee to make their way to the Indian Ocean, cruising around the Maldives and the Seychelles Islands. The 4 biggest yachts in the Maldives right now happen to be Russian-owned. The largest 459-foot Ocean Victory belongs to steel magnate Viktor Razhnikov, according to superyachtfan.com. Oh, fun. Vagit Alexperov, president of Russia-based Lukoil. And by the way, a lot of these Russian billionaires, of course, are rich due to their investments in fossil fuels. And so understand that Russia is a petrostate. That's what they do. They export lots and lots of fossil fuels. By the way, some of the sanctions have not been levied against fossil fuels. Interesting question as to why that happened. Nonetheless, the other one, let's see, this Alexperov is reportedly sailing his yacht, Galactica Supernova, to Barcelona, from Barcelona, Spain to Montenegro, according to marine traffic data. Billionaire Oleg Deripaska, his 230-foot yacht Clio is headed for the Maldives from Sri Lanka, and the 465-foot Nord, owned by Alexei Mordashov, another billionaire, this time who has made his fortune in steel, is in the Seychelles after sailing from the Maldives. And then you have Russian banker Andrei Kostin's Sea Rhapsody also heading to the island chain from Turkey. So look, they're on their way. They're getting out of there. Flee, run for the hills, take your boat and go, or I should say, yacht. Now others, of course, are not so lucky. On Wednesday, authorities in Germany seized Russian oligarch Alisher Usmanov's 500-foot mega yacht, the Dilbar, as part of the package of sanctions against the Kremlin and its supporters, according to Forbes. The ship was taken by authorities in the North German port of Hamburg on Wednesday. The craft is estimated to be worth about $600 million. The French government on Thursday said it seized a super yacht owned by a company linked to Igor Sechin, the chief executive of Russian energy giant Rosneft and close confidant of Vladimir Putin. The vessel, Amore Vero, was seized at a shipyard in near Marseille, near the according to the finance ministry. The vessel reportedly features a 6-meter glass-bottom swimming pool with a waterfall, and a touch-and-go helipad and elevator, and a large beach club. Oh yes, very, very nice, very nice. As some of you point out, future low-income housing, perhaps. Another one, Roman Abramovich, who is said to be to be Putin's closest oligarch ally, has put his London properties up for sale and is even selling his beloved Chelsea Football Club. He is very, very sad. Very sad, these billionaires, either having to run or being cut off, or having to sell things that they own before they get seized. And so there you are. Now, British MP Chris Bryant said in Parliament in London on Monday about Abramovich, quote, "He's terrified of being sanctioned. Don't sanction me, bro. My precious yacht. Please don't take me yacht. No, I can't handle it. I can't handle it." No, look, here's the thing. These are the kind of sanctions I can get behind. Yes, when you go after the rich, I loves it. Yes. Yes, I love it. Now, look, I don't like sanctions that hurt regular working people. I do not, jive with those sanctions, okay? Because, look, regular working people didn't make Vladimir Putin invade Ukraine. That's not what happened. In fact, let's just note that there are thousands of brave Russian citizens who have stood up against Vladimir Putin and have protested in the street. Now, this is a place where, again, you can be jailed for essentially anything. And look, Putin has not been shy about throwing political opponents in prison. And so that makes it extra brave. This isn't like right-wing protesters here in the country who's like, look at the tyranny that's going on. You can't sit there and protest and block the road for 6 weeks. We can't do any of that. Well, again, if you show up outside in Russia to just do an anti-war protest, well, you can get thrown in prison. And you might end up disappearing. There's a good chance. So that takes balls. Now, the oligarchs, as I said, they have significant sway, considerable, which I actually think is really smart to go after them. If enough billionaires or oligarchs are hurt financially, and keep this in mind, right, for the future, well, guess what? Those same billionaires might have the ability to bring enough pressure to push Putin back. Now, Putin, again, I really doubt that he gives a shit about regular working people in Russia, working class Russians who are hurting as a result of some of these sanctions. But guess what? He probably does care about his money. And even if he doesn't, well, the oligarchs, his rich friends, probably do. And they are, again, feeling the pain, as they should, In fact, here's a pretty hilarious quote from Sergei Narashkin, that's head of the Russian Foreign Intelligence on this. Here's what they said. Quote, "The masks are off. The West isn't simply trying to close off Russia behind a new iron curtain. This is about an attempt to ruin our government, to cancel, as they now say, intolerant liberal fascist circles." Now it's cancel culture. Cancel culture. Fun. Now, look, one more serious note here. I like it when people take down oligarchs. Oligarchs in Russia, we should probably adopt that same message, that same name for billionaires in the United States, because they also have a lot of control over our political system and are not looking out for us. Let's just be fair to that. But again, let's be mindful here of one thing. Going after billionaires, good. Going after regular people, the Russian people specifically, bad. Regular working class Russian people are not my enemy, right? They're not our enemy. The Ukrainian people, obviously, they're not our enemy. The Iranian people, not our enemy. North Korean people, not our enemy. No, they have bad governments. They have terrible governments. And think about it this way, right? The United States government has, well, I mean, we've gotten into a lot of wars. We've bombed a lot of different countries. We've caused misery and death all over the Middle East and the rest of the planet, Africa, etc. We're still supplying bombs that are being dropped on Yemen right now. Would it be all that fair for citizens of other countries to come after Americans and to blame us for the actions of our government that we don't agree with? Keep that in mind. That's a very, very important distinction. And so, yes, go after the billionaires, go after Putin, but don't take this out. And I understand that people are high in emotion right now. There's a lot of tension going on as a result of this invasion into Ukraine, but don't take it out on Russian immigrants. Don't take it out on business owners here in the United States. And I give you an example of that. There's a terrible attack against the Russia House restaurant in DC. just for having the name Russia House. Hey, look, you're not taking it to Vladimir Putin by smashing their windows. No, the people who worked there didn't invade Ukraine. Again, I understand the passions are super high, and look, at least I speak for myself. I stand with the Ukrainian people, but you can't just demonize every single person who is a Russian, especially knowing that right now there are so many of them that are risking arrest or worse by protesting against Putin's war. And so keep that in mind. We're all human here, okay? Attacking random Russian people is dumb. And by the way, it's the same kind of bullshit as right-wingers that go after random Chinese people, blaming them for COVID-19, all right? Or, for example, going after Muslims, people from the Middle East over 9/11. Let's keep regular people out of this and focus on the governments that are doing the wrong and the billionaires that are supporting them. So let's bring it all down. And by the way, if you are just so incredibly raring to go to fight, well, then you could always, of course, go to Ukraine and join in their defense. Some people have. That's always an option. But just, again, leave the regular people out of this. As one of the chatters points out, many Russian citizens do not support what Putin is doing. Absolutely. And that's why we should stand in solidarity with that, with the citizens there, and keep our ire towards the government and the oligarchs. There are also thousands of dead, says Occam's taser, and arrested Russian citizens who want nothing to do with all of this. Again, 100%. I also point out that it also seems a little ridiculous that people are, like pouring out what they believe to be like Russian vodka actually made in Latvia. So again, emotions are high, but we all gotta try to kind of keep our heads above that and to not let us get washed away with those emotions. Even though what's going on is just absolutely horrifying and heartbreaking, we got to think. We gotta stay a little bit more logical on this one. All right. Speaking of sort of that, go to cancel culture. Yeah, if you're already on the vodka, just drink it. They already have your money. True. Very, very true. Again, it just reminds me of conservatives when they, shoot their own coolers. Like, bring it down, everybody. Let's be smart about this. Is that Latvia vodka still owned by a Russian oligarch? Then just don't buy any new ones. Nothing wrong with voting with your wallet. Just let's be smart about it. No, it's not right-wingers going after citizens, but I'm just using that as an example. Yes, there's unfortunately a lot of libs that are doing the same thing, and that's why I'm saying we need to frickin' cool it. But like I said, let's go to cancel culture. As the Russian military continues to push into Ukraine, the pushback from the European Union and their allies has been sparking a familiar talking point among some members of the right wing.
Look, Russia is now being canceled, right? I mean, between the fierce Ukrainian resistance and the widespread international financial sanctions and boycotts and Russian teams being barred from international competitions, Russia is being canceled.
Ah, yes. Russia, victim of cancel culture. From the woke they thems. Look, understand that this is a real talking point that they're using. And by the way, is there a little bit of truth to it? Yeah, that's the whole point. But as I'm going to talk about, it's the ridiculous framing and the lens that they're looking at this through. So anyway, let me give you some examples here. First, let's go to a bit of an official person on this. And this is, well, the head of Russian foreign intelligence. Says the masks are off. The West isn't simply trying to close off Russia behind a new Iron Curtain. This is about an attempt to ruin our government, to cancel it, as they now say in tolerant, liberal fascist circles. Liberal fascist. Wow. Already. Fun. Oh, but there's more. I got one more here. This is a Washington Post reporter saying we are witnessing the first geopolitical cancellation of the 21st century. He went on to say, of course, that whether it's right or wrong, or whether or not you agree that it's, with it, which, by the way, he does agree with the sanctions, he still framed it as a cancel culture issue. That's very, very strange. No, yes, well, cancel culture struck again. You can't even invade your neighbor without the woke mobs, the woke liberal mobs that are trying to come in and do a cancel culture. Wow. Look, at this point, is anyone surprised? It's anyone's surprise. You got right-wingers all over the globe that are attempting to use this basically culture war, cancel culture rhetoric. I swear. And again, there are people on here, there are so-called influencers, right, on social media, on, the different platforms that are also talking about this, that are, terminally online and are using this rhetoric. And in fact, here's the example here. No, that's not him. Even though, okay. Let's see, let me find it. There it is. Dear lipshits and radlibs, where's your they, them army now? That, again, that's really, really strange. And yes, that is in response to the invasion of Ukraine. Where's your they, them army? Again, cancel culture stuff, right? The people need to log off. They're incapable of seeing anything beyond their weirdo culture war wokest narrative. And look, people are dying. Okay, this is serious stuff. You have hospitals, you have apartment buildings, TV stations, a Holocaust memorial. They've been bombed. Artillery, airstrikes. Casualties are in the hundreds, even thousands. But here we have people talking about cancel culture. Cancel culture. Because, by the way, yes, billionaires, they've gotten their assets seized. You have people that are choosing not to do business with Russian companies, that have decided to cut off ties. In fact, I think just recently, the developer of The Witcher 3, Cyberpunk 2077, they decided we're not going to sell our games in Russia at this point. We're just not going to do it. And that's fine. But yet somehow, all of this is bad because it's cancel culture. What? Now, I want to point out, by the way, that Vladimir Putin has used this. Yes, CD Projekt Red, by the way, that's the developer of The Witcher 3, The Witcher games, and Cyberpunk. I just couldn't remember the name. But look, Putin himself has called out cancel culture. In fact, here's what he said on that. This was during a discussion club in Sochi, which, had a talk. And it was backed by a Moscow-based think tank that he is closely linked to. He said, the fight against racism is a necessary and noble cause, but in the modern cancel culture, it turns into reverse discrimination, reverse racism. Reverse discrimination, everybody. That's what it is. No. The whole thing, again, viewing it through the lens of cancel culture is ridiculous. What it really should be called is global consequences. Because that's what it is. I mean, their economy is just getting obliterated by this, by the way. Well done. Well done. All right, there's more. Let's go back to Ted here. And cancel culture is their book burning. True. All right. Here we go. Donald Trump Jr. thinks that the military, the U.S. military, is filled with wokeists. Take a look.
It was the hearings afterwards where our generals, the great woke leaders of our U.S. military that spent 6 million man-hours training our troops about wokeness. Like, not fighting, not killing bad guys. They wanted to learn about white rage, a term that none of us had ever heard of prior to him testifying it, right? Maybe they should focus on China, but when I watch our military leadership, who's gone the way of the left, sit there before the American people and said, well, as it pertains to Afghanistan, we could not have seen this coming.
Now, that was at CPAC over the weekend, and so last weekend. And look, you could see the signs emblazoned everywhere. Not woke, we're awake, but not woke. And then we got the woke military, and we got the they-them tanks. Completely and utterly unhinged, right? But this has been a talking point that the right has been using quite a bit. Again, here's Ted Cruz tweeting about it. He says, and this is, by the way, a comparison about Russian military recruitment commercials versus U.S. military recruitment commercials. So he says, perhaps a woke, emasculated military is not the best idea. The woke. So we got the woke military. We got the they-them armies. Pronouns. What are you going to do? You're going to shoot them with pronouns? That's what's going on here. No, this is ridiculous. But look, understand that this is one of many different examples. What you have here is this narrative, this weirdo culture war narrative that surrounds the military. Now, again, it's both hilarious and counterfactual. At the same time, by the way, these same people were praising the Russian military for being anti-woke. A lot of right-wingers. They're like, oh, look at how anti-woke Putin is. That's why we think it's great for Russia to invade Ukraine. We stand with the Russians. In fact, there's a Twitter hashtag earlier that says, I stand with Putin, I stand with Russia. I mean, just absolute weirdo stuff. But it's all this weird right-wing, narrative of we don't like wokeism, whatever that is. What does that mean? I don't know. Because there's no such thing as a woke military. The whole point of the military, I don't know if you know this, or I don't know if they know this, I should say, if right-wingers, if you're watching, the whole point of the military is to kill people. That's about as anti-woke as you can get. I'm just saying, you can't get less woke than killing other people. Yeah, but okay, all right. So now, that said, why is he going off in this weirdo woke tangent? Well, it turns out, let's get into the facts, okay? So he talked about the 6 million man-hours, or near 6 million man-hours of wokish training. Oh, we got wokish training here. That actually comes from a letter sent by Army General Mark Milley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff to Senator James Inhofe. Now, James Inhofe, of course, is saying that the military is going to the left. We got left-wing cancel culture. We got a culture experiment of the leftisms. All right, well, now Inhofe, who is the top-ranking Republican on the Senate Armed Services Committee. I mean, that right there, it blows my mind. Remember, this is Senator Snowball, right? Literally went outside, took a snowball, brought it into the Senate chambers, and was like, this is why global warming doesn't exist, where it's not real. Oh, okay then. Now, Inhofe asked Milley how much time the military spent on rooting out extremists, as well as a climate change plan and a new training program on diversity and inclusion. Oh no! Diversity and inclusion, how terrible. How awful. Oh no. Now, most of that time was actually, that's about nearly 5.4 million hours was spent on a stand down ordered after the January 6th insurrection. That involved about nearly 2.5 million service members, which breaks down to a total of 2 hours per person in training. That's it. Now, Milley said that that was comparable to all other periodic training requirements. Now that climate change plan actually took up about 1,059 hours. Again, not very long. Diversity training, 529,711 hours, bringing the total man hours up to about 5.9 million. So again, you spread that across 2.5 million soldiers, and well, you know, it adds up to not being very long. So now what's interesting is climate change got the least amount of time. No, well, okay, but climate change is an existential threat. And understand why. And even the military, again, understands this. The Pentagon understands this, because what's going to happen when there is mass climate change is you're going to have migration due to places that can no longer grow food, or places that are unable to sustain human life due to the extreme temperatures. We had seen extreme temperatures in the Australian interior. You had seen extreme temperatures in places in sub-Saharan Africa. And so you have places there that are already hot that are going to get worse. They're going to get hotter. And again, you have places that are barely able to grow food now that will be unable to grow food. So what's going to happen? And by the way, there are islands as a result of sea level rise because of the Arctic melting, all that ice melting and going into the ocean. Well, some of these islands are going to lose their land as well. The United States will lose coastline, and so pushing people back. What you're going to have is a lot of migration. A lot. And so that will create conflicts over land and resources. When you look at that, of course the military would be concerned about that. Yes, that's important. And these conditions will create wars, possibly civil wars. Again, lots and lots of human suffering and death. I know people laughed at Bernie Sanders when they said, oh, Syria, right? Syria was partly created by conditions that were exacerbated by climate change. But it's actually true. It's actually true. So now that's going to be a problem. So obviously the military has to be prepared to deal with this, right? So now, as for diversity, look, we're a more diverse country. We're getting more diverse, right? Does it not make sense from a recruitment perspective? When you're looking at it from you're a military recruiter, right? And you want to beef up those numbers to do whatever, war in the Middle East that you want to do. And I'm not saying that I agree with this, right? I'm just saying that from their perspective, right? Wouldn't it make sense to try to recruit different diverse groups of people into the military? Especially when we, at this moment, have an all-volunteer military. Yes, that would make sense. That would make sense. That's why they're going with these commercials. And again, I made fun of the woke, so-called woke army recruitment commercials because they were cringy. And not only that, because the military, again, is training you to literally go out and murder people, which I don't think is the direction that we need to go. I actually think that we should cut the military budget. Yes, and stop, doing the imperialisms. We need to stop going to war so much, or at all if possible, all that stuff. But to say that the military has gone woke and now is operating out of a leftist social agenda, that's fucking absurd. Absolutely ridiculous. No, if it were a leftist social agenda, we would have cut the military by like 2/3 and then funded social programs with it. I'd get behind that. But no, let me go to Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby, who, by the way, pushed back against Inhofe, saying this, quote, I would say, and this is reflected in the material, stand down was principally designed to reinforce for everyone the very meaning of the oath they take to the Constitution, and what that oath pretends for the behavior expected of us, the dignity and respect we owe each other, and the greater loyalty we owe to America's system of government. Now, again, the reason that he's saying that and talking about the oath, right, to the Constitution, is that, this is right after January 6th. So the reason that they did the stand down is because that training, the stand down training, was because they were concerned about military members joining in the Trump insurrection. And so, yes, that extremism training that made up the bulk of the requirements was a direct response to January 6th. And so, no, this is not like, oh, the leftist social agenda with the they, them tanks and the woke army. No. These, look, whatever the hell the right-wingers and Don Jr. are talking about, it's just complete and utter absurdity and nonsense. Okay. Okay. So there's a new report from the January 6th committee. There's a bunch of new documents that were released. I don't know if I'm too excited about them because I'm very, very cynical about this, but let's get into the details anyway. So according to Politico, you have the January 6th committee that is claiming that they have evidence that Donald Trump himself had violated multiple laws by attempting to prevent Congress from certifying his defeat in the 2020 election. So again, this goes back to the election conspiracy theories that have been pushed by Donald Trump. And so now the committee, of course, has been trying to find out how much Donald Trump had, how much control or how much he knew about what was called, I think, the Green Bay sweep, was it? Where you had Steve Bannon, of course, and other Trump allies that were trying to pressure Mike Pence into not certifying the election so that they could go and do nonstop propaganda for a couple of days, and which could lead to electors in different states to not certify the election in a desperate bid to put Donald Trump back into office. Of course, as I've told you numerous times, there's no actual mechanism for putting in a president back into power who has lost. And so, what you have here is a pipe dream. What you had is a situation where they had attempted to basically do a soft coup in this country. And so that's what the January 6th committee is actually looking into. So now, according to a filing submitted to a U.S. court, district court in California, they said that the select committee has a good faith basis for concluding that the president and members of his campaign engaged in criminal conspiracy to defraud the United States, among several other charges, in fact. Now, those crimes, these charges, included obstruction of an official proceeding, Congress's January 6th session to count electoral votes, defrauding the United States, as I mentioned, and violating the District of Columbia's common fraud law. So these are, again, charges. I guess serious enough. Now, let's get into more details, all right? Now, they wrote that characterizing experts of nearly a dozen depositions from top aides to Trump and former Vice President Mike Pence, the committee described a president who had been informed repeatedly that he lost the election and that his claims of fraud were unfounded, only to reject them and to continue to mislead the American public. He then pushed top advisors to continue strategizing ways to overturn the election results. Again, if this feels like something that we already knew or suspected, that's because we already feels like we've already heard this, right? It feels like we've already seen this. We already know this. Yes, he knew about this. I've said it before. He knew what he was doing, and he was trying to pressure Mike Pence. That's, of course, why he sent out tweets during the January 6th Capitol riot. That's why you had the rally with all of these different speakers, including Rudy Giuliani, Madison Cawthorn, that were, basically trying to rile up this crowd. They were riling up this crowd with all of these nonstop election conspiracies, voter fraud, mass voter fraud, all this stuff, illegals, whatever, right? All these different competing conspiracy theories to explain how Donald Trump had lost the election, but didn't actually lose the election. So now, in 16 different accompanying exhibits, the panel showcased testimony from figures including campaign advisor Jason Miller, White House communication aides Ben Williamson, Pence National Security Advisor Keith Kellogg, Pence counsel Greg Jacob, and Pence Chief of Staff Mark Short. So, of course, you have Pence's aides now working together with the January 6th committee. Now, the top Justice Department officials also provided testimony revealed by the panel Wednesday night that included Acting Attorney General Jeff Rosen and his top advisor Richard Donahue. A lot of these names you probably have never heard of, but one name you might have is John Eastman. So John Eastman, of course, wrote this memo on how to overturn the election. And so now Eastman, these disclosures, Politico notes, might be an effort to attempt to pressure Eastman to come and testify. So now he did testify, but he invoked the Fifth Amendment about 150 times. So you didn't get anything out of him. But it turns out he might be a very big player in this because of his proximity to Trump. So now, let me go into more details about that. So the committee says that the work with Eastman, Trump's work with Eastman to pressure Pence to take illegal acts could prove that Trump had committed felony obstruction. So now investigators, in order to prove that, would have to show that he corruptly intended to impede an official proceeding. I would say that, of course, those efforts would fit that definition. The panel also says the evidence supports an inference that Trump knew he had lost the election. Jason Miller described a blunt conversation with Trump in which campaign aides told him that he had lost, but the president nevertheless sought to use the vice president to manipulate the results in his favor. Miller told the committee that the campaign aide Matt Oskowski told Trump in the Oval Office that he was going to lose, citing county and state level results that were being reported, but Miller and Trump refused to accept their assessment. Again, nothing that we don't already know. He believed, this is according to Miller talking to a panel, he believed that Matt was not looking at the prospect of legal challenges going our way, and that Matt was looking at purely from what those numbers were showing as opposed to broader things to include legality and election integrity issues, which, as a data guy, he may not have been monitoring. The bulk of the committee's legal filing also focused on reconstructing Eastman's efforts to justify ordering Pence to overturn the election single-handedly, which again he cannot do, when he presided over Congress's electoral vote counting session on January 6th. On that day, during the, of course, Capitol insurrection, there were some newly released emails between those figures and Eastman. In fact, Pence's counsel had emailed Eastman saying this, quote, "Thanks to your bullshit, we are now under siege." Damn. Now, Pence's counsel also sent a refutation of the argument that Pence can single-handedly overturn the election himself. Again, that's factual. He can't do that. There is no mechanism. Nonetheless, they continued. In fact, here's what Eastman emailed back. Quote, "The siege is because you and your boss did not do what was necessary to allow this to be aired in a public way so the American people can see for themselves what happened." So understand, this goes back to the Green Bay sweep, right? That they knew that Pence couldn't actually do that. However, what they wanted to do is for Pence to create a national media sensation by not, or by refusing to certify the election results, which would this would get all sorts of air on Fox News, right-wing media, and cable news media would also cover it in an attempt to, of course, muddy the waters with all of these allegations of fraud being, by the way, pushed through the recounts during the states, and all of this stuff were to create what you consider to be a perfect storm of disinformation, which would allow these electors in these states, and we know the fake electors that had already drawn up documentation claiming that, no, we are the actual electors, and we think Donald Trump won. And so what this is just part of that attempt to use those fake electors to try to have an illegitimate victory. Once again, soft coup. And that's what it is. Even after the exchange, Eastman had made one more final plea to convince Pence to stop the counting of electoral votes, acknowledging, and this is important as well, that it would amount to a relatively minor violation of federal law known as the Electoral Count Act. Hey, it's okay. Yes, we're going to break the law, but it's relatively minor. To try to steal an election. Wow. Plaintiff knew, the committee wrote in his filings, that what he was proposing would violate the law, but he nonetheless urged the vice president to take those actions. So there's Eastman. And so again, all of this is to try to get Eastman to come clean about Trump on the record, which could lead, of course, to actual charges. But here's the thing, too. Why am I skeptical about this? Well, because we've seen how the system protects Trump. We've seen how Republicans went out of their way to protect Trump during two different impeachment inquiries. That said, of course, look, we're seeing this documentation. Yes, it looks damning, but once again, my cynicism takes over. It just does, unfortunately, because Donald Trump has tried to hide behind executive privilege. He's hidden behind weak Republicans who wouldn't dare oppose him. He still has the vast majority of the Republican base that would prefer him to be president. And so, look, yes, the situation has changed a little bit. You do have more establishment Republicans that are pushing back, that are being reported to have started to oppose Trump. But again, I don't think it's enough. I don't think it's enough. I don't think the commission is going to be able to punish Trump in any meaningful way. And by the way, how long is this going to take? This investigation? I don't know. If it takes a long time, and then we end up with Donald Trump as president, well, then we've essentially lost democracy. So I don't know what's going to happen. It's just one of those things where I think I'll believe it when I see it, when there is actual charges and when there is some actual justice for what Trump had done during January 6th and afterwards. So, and by the way, we also have to have a Justice Department that is willing and able to actually go after them. Merrick Garland, looking at you, Robert Mueller didn't do anything when he had obstruction of justice lined up, when he could have went after the president. Now Merrick Garland is, at this point, in my mind, slow walking this entire thing. And I just, again, am very, very cynical about anything that's going to happen. We know Donald Trump has done a lot of terrible things, illegal things. But, you know, powerful people never seem to get punished. So I'll believe it when I see it. Okay. Toolman Tim 51 says, the system is afraid of Trump and his flock. He will get away with everything. I believe the two prosecutors that resigned last week did so because they and their family were getting death threats. I do. Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad Jeff doesn't speak in Valley or lingo like TDR. That's because I'm not from the Valley. I don't even understand what's going on when they talk like that. So I'm like, I don't know. I'm just regular working class person. I think you talk like a sausage. What does a sausage sound like? What does that even mean? I like sausage. Weird. Okay. Anyway. Let's move on. Right-wingers continue to argue that the existence of mass voter fraud, while pushing harsher sentences for those guilty of doing not so mass voter fraud. So now, that's interesting, right? So look, we've already known that there is no mass voter fraud. There have been singular instances of voter fraud. And by the way, the story is about a couple of them, actually. Now, in the late summer of 2020, Bruce Bartman, he's the Bartman. He went to Pennsylvania's voter registration website and signed up his mother and mother-in-law to vote. Now, there's this one problem, of course. They were dead. Both of them. They were dead. So, look, we got dead voters, right? Now, you could say, well, see, the right one, we were right. You had dead voters. Okay, but these dead voters voted for Trump. A few months later, Bartman, who was white, requested a mail-in ballot for his late mother and cast her vote for Donald Trump. Shocker. Bartman was then arrested that December and charged with perjury and unlawful voting. Again, voter fraud. Months later, he pleaded guilty, admitted that he made a stupid mistake, was sentenced to 5 years of probation, and barred from serving on a jury or voting for 4 years. In fact, the local district attorney said at the time, this is Jack Stolzheimer, quote, there's not public benefit to him being incarcerated. Okay, so probation, right? Probation. So now you might be thinking, okay, look, yes, he did intentional voter fraud, but he was caught, of course, punished. The system works, right? Well, yes, the system does work, but unfortunately, it doesn't seem to work evenly or equally. So in fact, there was another case here, a very high profile case in Memphis, where you had a Black Lives Matter activist named Pamela Moses. Pamela Moses, well, also filed a fraudulent vote. So now, a few years previously, Moses, who was black, lost the right to vote after committing a felony. Of course, nobody actually had removed Moses from the voter rolls, or, and this is important, informed her that she could not vote. So now, in 2019, when state officials began looking into her eligibility to vote, a probation officer had signed a certificate saying that she had completed her sentence and was eligible to vote again. So guess what? She had applied to do so. Unfortunately, when they looked into it, they realized, oopsie, we made a mistake. She cannot vote. And so doing so, well, that means she would commit voter fraud. So now that is a crime. Now, that said, corrections officers admitted that it was a mistake. They didn't get punished. Moses, however, was recently convicted in November and sentenced in January to 6 years and 1 day in prison. So now, going back to Bartman. Bartman gets probation for literally doing what Republicans warn you against. Oh, we got dead people that are voting. Okay. But she was told, hey, you served your sentence. You are now able to vote. Go ahead and vote. And what happens? She gets prison time. That's the situation. That's the justice, the so-called justice system at work. All right. So now, that said, I said it was a whole high-profile case, and they got a lot of attention. And so, as a result, thankfully, a judge ordered a new trial. That said, it should not have taken that kind of outrage. Imagine if it hadn't gone viral. Imagine if nobody had paid attention to this. Then she'd be in prison for 6 years and 1 day. Needlessly, while Bartman is on probation, he's out. So now, Moses' case, by the way, and it's not the only one, there's another case, Crystal Mason. Crystal Mason is a Texas woman who was sentenced to 5 years for voting while on federal supervised release. That is similar to probation. She had done that in 2016. Probation officials testified that they never told Mason that she couldn't vote, and her ballot was never even counted. So no way to swing an election, right? But a judge found her guilty of illegally voting anyway. An appeal is currently pending at Texas's highest criminal court. And last summer, Texas officials, once again Texas, also arrested Hervis Rogers, who was black, for voting while on probation for a felony. Rogers, who received national attention after waiting 7 hours in line to vote in 2020, also says he didn't know that he was ineligible to vote. His case is currently pending. And he could face several years in prison. Now, again, you compare that, like, those cases are terrible, right? Now, you compare that with some other cases, right? So these are all black, but the cases I'm about to read you are all white people. A 72-year-old Republican last year in Pennsylvania was sentenced to probation after putting on sunglasses and trying to impersonate his son at the polls. An Arizona 64-year-old woman pleaded guilty to forging her deceased mother's signature on a mail-in ballot. She was sentenced to probation and could face up to 90 days in jail when she is sentenced in March. In Nevada, a Republican who voted using his dead wife's ballot and then lied about it. There was a whole national media storm around this person where he claimed that, no, it was the Democrats that stole their vote when he was the one who actually did it. Pleaded guilty and was sentenced to probation. And in 2018, and again, a lot of these cases are from different places in the country. About a month after Mason was sentenced, in the same county a white justice of the peace, pleaded guilty to forging signatures to get on the ballot when he was running for office. Actual election fraud. He was sentenced to probation. You notice the pattern here? Notice that? White Republicans, they do voter fraud, literally impersonating, other people, dead people, to vote for Trump. Republicans, they do that knowingly. They get off easy with probation. Black people, who tend to, vote for Democrats, well, they get their rights taken away, and they get huge prison sentences. Now, they don't even know, because of the way that our system is structured, they don't even know that they had lost their voting rights. In fact, I've got some statistics here that are disastrous. Over 1/5 of black people voting age in Moses' home state of Tennessee. Nearly 175,000 people, they're unable to vote because of a felony conviction. This is according to an estimate by the Sentencing Project. Around 70% of Tennessee's population is black. However, black people account for around 40% of those who are disenfranchised because of a felony conviction in the state. Now remember, by the way, you look at the history of the criminal justice system in these states, in the country overall. You have black people that will do the same crimes, but get punished more harshly than white counterparts. And again, I say it for these same crimes. They do not get pled down to misdemeanors. They end up being felonies. A lot of it's nonviolent drug offenses that you have. They lose their voting rights and are not told. And so when they do get out, they serve their time. They go to try to vote. What happens? Well, this is what happens. They get caught, they go to prison. Even worse. So that's what happens. And so now, very, very big problem. By the way, more here. Nationally, around 2.3% of the voting age population cannot vote because of a felony. For black Americans, it's 6.3%. So keep that in mind. Now, of course, there is the prosecutor here. After this case of Mason, after her case went viral, the prosecutor's like, whoa, no, hold on, whoa. Let me give you some details. See, it turns out we tried to give her a plea deal and she wouldn't take it. She rejected it. She decided to go to trial. Now, a plea deal, of course, and they would have pled her down to a misdemeanor. That means you admitted the crime in order to get that lesser sentence, avoid a trial, right? Now, why should she have pled guilty to something that she didn't knowingly do? Now, and I'm saying this as she was explicitly told, hey, you can go ahead and do this. You are now able to vote. You have served your time. Go ahead and, do your patriotic duty to go and vote, right? Turns out she couldn't. Not her fault that she didn't know. Not her fault. So why would you plead guilty to doing that? To doing exactly what you thought you should have been able to do? She did nothing wrong. So I understand completely why she was like, no, fuck that. No, I reject that. I'm not going to take a plea deal. My case is obvious that it wasn't my fault. Unfortunately, when she went to trial, they didn't agree. They didn't agree at all. So now, here's a DA in Memphis who prosecuted Moses. Here's what she said. Quote, I gave her a chance to plead to a misdemeanor with no prison time. She requested a jury trial instead. She set this unfortunate result in motion. Yes, it's her fault. And so a jury of her peers heard the evidence, her peers, quote unquote, and convicted her. You see, it's not our fault. It's her fault. Because she wouldn't admit to doing something that she didn't do. And so we destroyed her. We just destroyed her. You know, we wanted to send a message. How dare you? How dare you reject our generosity? We offered you a plea deal. We were so kind and so nice. Know your place. Know your place. And by the way, that just doesn't just happen to black people. Yes, it does more often than not. But it happens to a lot of people in the justice system, because it turns out that you have prosecutors that will be angry that you don't, plead guilty, that you don't take their plea deal. They take it personally. And so they're like, oh yeah? You're not going to take my plea deal. All right, fine. Now we're going to come after you with a full force. And that's it. It's horrible. It's just absolutely horrible. These same prosecutors, by the way, also defended the sentences for Moses and Mason by pointing to their prior criminal records. Well, see, they're criminals. So, they belong in prison anyway, so, that's it. There you go. Absolute racism. Disgusting. Disgusting. Look, once you've served your time, hell, why shouldn't prisoners also have the right to vote? Just because you committed a crime doesn't mean you should lose a fundamental right to determine the outcome of your country, right? These elections. Oh, but you understand, they're going to vote for judges who are, and for people who are less tough on crime. So it might actually help them. Oh my God, can you imagine a politician actually helping you? Whoa, oh no, we better put a stop to that. We better prevent that from happening. We can't have that. We can't have elected officials helping the people that they represent. No, it's ridiculous. Absolute ridiculousness. The goal here, and by the way, this is Bennett Capers. Here's what they said. This is a former federal prosecutor who now teaches law at Fordham University. This is a perfect quote. They said that the Moses case sort of sends a message that, by the way, don't even think about going to the polls. And that's exactly what it is. They do not want black people going to the polls. That's it. That's it. They want to stop people from voting because they might vote a certain way. They might actually vote for things that might help them. Maybe even for criminal justice reform. Can't have that. Oh, no, we can't have that at all. No. Once again, this is another example of a racist institution that still exists in this country. And they say, well, critical race theory, we can't teach that. We can't possibly teach that. Well, this is why, because they don't want people to know that this stuff is happening and that it is, in a lot of these cases, part of the old racist institution to keep black people down. It is systemic, and it needs to be, that system needs to be toppled and replaced. Okay, I'm massively out of time. Went a little too long today, but there's a lot of stuff to talk about. Let's do some, read a super chat here. We got one today. Very, very, very nice of you to do so. Supers. Let's see. Waldorf sausage, a bit sweet and a bit spicy, heart healthy and nutritious by today. Oh, well, very, very kind of you, but I think it'd be a fat-laden sausage. Maybe filled with cheese. Cheese. Cheese-filled sausage. Can you tell I'm hungry? Okay. Anyway, thank you very much, Ronald Lama Richardson. It's very, very kind of you. Let's go to Twitch here to see if there's anything. Let's see. Nope. Nothing new on the Twitch stream, unfortunately. Should we see you tomorrow? What, is there a holiday tomorrow? Is there... What's going on? Yes, normally, yeah. You should expect me tomorrow. I'll be here. No worries about that. And then, thank goodness, weekend. Can't wait. I'm gonna play some Elden Ring and get absolutely obliterated. Should be great. All right, for all of you, let's raid into Ravana's reactions. So let's do that. Enjoy the game. I will in the weekend. And that should be fun. All right. Thank you all. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Thank you again for the super chats. Very, very helpful. As always, like and subscribe and do all the wonderful things. Join our Patreon, patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf. Wonderful stuff. Today's my birthday. I go back to black. Well, happy birthday! Glad I caught that before it was time to go. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Hopefully you have a good one. All right. That's it. Thank you all. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. See you tomorrow.
Who's got a hammer?
There's insanity in the control room. Please clap.
Sexual anarchy.
Obama.
There's some whores in the town. Wet ass P-word.
You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.
Disappointed.